Hey, everybody. Oh, there's a hair on my glass. Happy Wednesday. Tanks are doing fabulous. Hope your seahorses are swimmingly happy. And I don't have any other cliche things to say. If you are watching on Instagram, still have not figured out how to get the frames right. So I apologize that you're seeing the center of the screen, but at least you can hear us, right? So you can hear us talk seahorses. At some point, we will get it figured out. And if you want to watch the full version so you can see our beautiful faces, just head on over to YouTube. All right. I've had a horrid week, terrible. And, but luckily my seahorses are doing great and my male is pregnant and I'm expecting, the seahorse is expecting, I should say. But we're going to just have open chat. No guests this week because I'm just here for it. I'm here for you, but I'm just here. All right. So happy Wine Wednesday. Oh, I still have not gotten a wine glass. So I've got the margarita glass out, but I'm sipping on some Chardonnay. Let me know in the comments what you're sipping on. And if you have any seahorse or reef questions, throw them in that comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, Holly, you start us off. Hello.
Okay.
Oh, you know what, Holly, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention for those on Instagram who can't see us, I have with me Cheryl Taylor, I have with me Ray Ford, and I have Holly, I don't even know your last name.
Milliner.
I knew that. Milliner.
Last week she couldn't remember mine.
I couldn't. I admit it. But so I've always got these guys join me every week. If you ever want to join us, you just need to let me know, and I can send you the link to jump in the video with us. But we've got some pro expert breeders, keepers in here to answer your questions. All right, zipping it. Go ahead, Holly.
Okay, so I still have my hospital tank going right now. And ran out of the Furan 2 around day 14. So I switched to Metroplex, Sulfaplex, and Canaplex. So I have 2 seahorses in there that are pretty much ready to go home at the end of that treatment. Thing 2, he's not getting better. He's gotten worse. He has the hugest tail bubble I've ever seen on a seahorse, actually. And he's getting floaty again. After the Furan 2 ran out, he started getting floaty again. I'm not too sure that it's actually air in his pouch. I think it's actually his body itself. Although his pouch looks big, but I think it's swollen. So
you think like his body's swollen and the pouch isn't, it's just pushing it out from the body, right?
I think the pouch tissue is swollen, not air in the pouch. That makes sense.
Okay.
One question, Holly. Have you tried giving him a pouch evac?
I've given him a few, and it doesn't seem to help other than the very first time a little bit of air came out. But I think the Diamox was what helped with his floatiness in the beginning. So I read that if Diamox doesn't do the job the first time around, it's not worth using again. Is that true, or would you try it another 5-day treatment on it?
Worst case scenario, if you try it for another 5 days, is he continues to go downhill, and then you know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing that have you tried, when you're given a pouch evac, have you tried injecting some antibiotic solution into the pouch itself?
The way I've done it is when I do the water change, I mix up the new meds in a 4-cup, measuring cup. So there's about 3 cups of water in there, and then all the meds before I pour it into the tank. And I use that solution to try to flush out his pouch before I dump it in the tank.
I see what you're doing. Okay. So you have tried that and it's not working.
Yeah. I'm going to try again tomorrow. I didn't do it today, because I had a lot going on. But tomorrow when I do the water and meds change, I'll try it again, because he just started getting floaty again the last couple days. It was pretty much been since the Furan 2 ran out and we switched to the Sulfaplex and the Canaplex. and his
Yeah,
tail
that Furon too,
bubble's
so much
been
better.
getting bigger all along. So I'm thinking, at the end, the 21 days of treatment will be up, and the 10 days of the Canaplex and Sulfaplex will all be done by Tuesday. So I'm thinking Tuesday next week, the other 2 patients will get to go home. And then I may have to put him to sleep. I have clove oil, but I don't know what else to do for him. You know?
I
Yeah, well, I mean, Dan wasn't. Dan's busy tonight, but he might jump in later. But like he was saying last week, I can't speak for him, but
Mhm.
typically, when it gets that bad, when it's what did he say last week? I think he said, what's the name of the really hard to treat thing, Cheryl?
Marina,
What is it?
what is it,
Spit
Ray?
it
Marina,
Mycobacter. Myco.
Micro.
Mycobacterium.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so when it's that, it's if it's that, that it's like almost impossible to treat with the drugs that we have. And go ahead, Cheryl.
I was going to say, even humans that have caught the Marinum and or the Vibrio, it can take them months, literally months and months on antibiotics. And in the interim, they're getting massive ulcerations, massive swelling. If it's something like that, once it's in there, can be very, very difficult to treat.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, Cheryl. I think the real answer is it's truly just up to you. I mean, if this is a seahorse that is your baby and you love him or her, and you're of course you're going to do whatever you can, fight till the dying day. Whereas if you're just trying to keep the rest of the seahorses safe, that's a different story.
When I saw that picture today, though, I was looking at him going, he's gotten progressively worse. The bubble on his tail
and
is
improved
huge.
in the hospital. Yeah.
And
The
Diamox
tail
just
bubble, I've never seen one that big, honestly.
right. And with Diamox, it, as we all know, it just treats the symptoms. So that makes sense that it helped him. But whatever the problem is, obviously wasn't relieved with the amount of Furon 2 you had. It's a darn shame they didn't still have it on the market, because that if you continued that, it may have, we'll never know. But
Yeah, and I don't know, because I mean, it didn't with Sandy. He had it 21 days, and and I lost him. So I think it gets to a point sometimes if their body is infected, they can't fight it, no matter what you do. So I'm thinking that's the case with him.
Yeah, it's also, we're not giving injectable antibiotics that would get into their systems like we would do with a human with that same type of problem. And that was the beauty of the Furan 2, is we were able to gut load live food with it and get it into them systemically. And it doesn't work with some of the other antibiotics. And I saw your picture today, and it's not just his pouch is swollen, yes, but it's just his pouch. It's his whole torso. And he's got the tail bubble has just exploded in terms of size.
Yeah.
Poor thing too.
Yeah, I feel so sorry. I feel sorry for Holly and for Thing too.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is
and he's fighting so hard. He's still eating, and he hunts the food. He's able barely, because his tail bubble's so big, but the tip of his tail can hitch him. So he's able to get around and hitch and hang places and, hunt his food, but he's having a very hard time. And I just don't feel optimistic in his case.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the reasons too.
It's not changed, but I don't think she ever had a bacterial infection. It's interesting. After our conversation last Wine Wednesday, I got a private message from somebody who watches the Wine Wednesday and heard us talking about that. And she said she has a seahorse that she's had for a while that has the same problem.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And and says she just scoots around the bottom, gets around that way and eats and everything. And it's kind of like Dandy. Dandy has a problem. I think it's the same thing, but he doesn't have as severe a case, I think, is what it is.
Gotcha.
So she hasn't changed, but she's able to get around and eat. So I think at the end of all the treatment, I'm just going to let her go home and live her life.
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
Dan.
like, hey, remember Dan's Seahorse with no tail? Literally no tail.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah.
And Ray, I have a question for you. All us ladies always talk so much, you never get to speak. But we've talked endlessly before about how seahorses are just different, gulp, all that stuff, and how they're like individuals. So one seahorse just might not be affected by the things that another seahorse is. But since Holly's had this happen to 2 seahorses, should she do anything like to the tank, or is it just these individual seahorses?
Well, it's kind of a hard thing to say when you can't actually see what's going on and really follow it for a bit. But the first thing, in my opinion, you have to do is try to maximize their resistance to a problem. In other words, get their immune systems built up, which means feeding more often and continually, and because it's not going to build up in a week or something like that. It's going to take a lot more time. But even at that, if you treat them all the same and do them all more, there's still going to be some that are more resistant than others. Now, if you're continually having problems with the system, and especially if it's bacterial, then I say you got to look at your husbandry and find out what you can do to upgrade that, to get rid of things like the dissolved organics that are so problematic and we can't measure. So if it was just, if you had one now and a couple of years after this, you had it happen again, that's one thing. But if you got in the period of a year, you got a couple that's happening, well, the first one may have had the weakest immune system. The second one is being affected, but because its immunity is at a little bit higher elevation, it took longer for it to actually show. So then that tells me that I've got to do something about that water situation. I don't think yours have been long term. I think it's what I would consider short term. So I'd be concerned about your water quality.
And thing two came from somewhere else.
Right. That's right. That's
the one that's having trouble now was living somewhere else before I had it. Yeah. And he started doing better here. Yeah. And then when my tank broke and he went in the tank, he had just the canister filter. I think that's what happened, because they weren't getting enough filtration for the 2 weeks while I was waiting for the return boxes for the sump.
Well, so, and I just wanted to butt in. I wanted to butt in really quickly and say, the reason I even asked that question is I personally had that happen. So I wasn't at all insinuating that somebody who has this happen is, bad or doing something wrong. But I had that personally happen where my seahorses just kept getting tail bubble diseases. And I had to do a massive cleaning and water change. That's not the case with Holly. The seahorse came back to her as she just explained. So just wanted to make that clear.
I would also like to point out to everybody, this is the reason, if you have seahorses that you've gotten from a breeder, if the breeder's been at this for any length of time, they're probably going to say, I'm sorry, I cannot take the risk of bringing that seahorse back into my general population. Because there's no way of knowing for sure what is causing the problem. And it may be, after your tank broke, it may be the water quality deteriorated somewhat. And with his basically limited immune system, where he was already having problems, it just made the whole problem considerably worse for him.
True that. True that, but I can totally understand why you did, Holly, because I would have.
Oh, yeah,
I would have
absolutely.
been like, "Come home, baby." But
Yeah, he's my baby. But
yeah,
Yeah.
but
But there's a
yeah,
point
and
with humans too that there are certain illnesses you get sick and you get to a certain point and there's just no way of coming back. Or if it is, it's like a miracle situation.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I can't see that fish or seahorses are really all that much different. You're going to have some more capable than others, but any of them, if they get bad enough, there is a point of no return.
absolutely. And I
Mhm.
gotta say, the most important thing about this whole night is I am just thrilled that today I look normal with Sam's beautiful big red seahorse next to me, whereas the sea dragon is pecking Ray's head today, and Cheryl and Lucy's seahorse is in Cheryl's hair. Love it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Little
But
joke on the side. Go ahead, Holly, or go ahead. Cheryl.
one of the things too to keep in mind when you've got a situation like this is, from what I saw today of the video that you posted, it makes me wonder if he's actually going into renal failure.
Mm.
Mm.
Because the only time I've seen seahorses like the torso swell up quite like his is if basically they're going into
Mhm.
renal failure.
So, but at what point, like,
Gotcha.
you would be able to tell if he was suffering, though, right? As long as he's not suffering, or is he suffering? I mean, how would you know?
How
I'm
do
not
you
sure that they
tell?
can tell. When
What
you
was
look
it?
at what dogs go through, dogs can go through a lot of pain and they go out of their way not to show the pain because it's an
Aw.
instinctive thing. If you show pain, then in the wild, the animal showing the pain is the one that's going to be attacked first because it's the weakest.
Yeah.
Well,
Makes
even
sense.
domesticated dogs have that same inclination, and they'll override pain and try to not show anything and get by just because of that instinct.
That's
Yes.
why I think my big answer to that question, and I don't know if this is right, but my big thing is when they stop eating. And at that point, I'll still try to treat or fix them. But if they stop eating, then that makes me think they're really not okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Having worked, my ex-husband is a veterinarian, and I used to work in the clinic with him. And we saw more than one animal that some people would bring in, and we had to tell them up front that the animal did not have a real good chance of getting past what was wrong with it. And it could be a matter of age, it could be a matter of a toxin. Um, we found like dogs that had been hit by cars and suffered head trauma. If we could get to them within 15 minutes, and if the owner saw it happen and would get the dog to us, we could treat them and they could go on and live a normal life. But once it got past that peak point,
Yeah.
there was not a darn thing we could do for them. And
That's why Ray always says the
I'm
second
gonna
you
have
notice they're
to
not
jump
acting
out
right,
and jump
hospital
back
tank.
in. I'm having trouble here.
What's the matter?
I'll be right back. I'm gonna have to close out and jump back in. I'm having trouble with my streaming. So let me jump out and jump back in.
okay.
Okay.
What's that you said I was always saying?
You always say the second that you notice that something's not going well, put the
Oh,
seahorse
yeah.
in a hospital tank.
Yeah, I hate to wait. I would rather err thinking something's wrong when it isn't than to not do anything and there actually be something wrong.
Right. By the way, you guys, Salty Reef had his latest fry. I got to see a picture of the beautiful baby. I'm so excited. And this is a human, not a seahorse. But I'll ask for his permission later, maybe to post it in the Wine Wednesday chat because she's beautiful. And I'm so excited. Congrats, Salty. So happy for you and your family.
My allergies
And then,
right now. Bear with me.
I
you're all
actually
right.
miss having the youngsters around, but unfortunately, my youngest grandkids are both 21.
I see. I was going to ask, are you talking about human or for seahorse youngsters?
The day you get a 21-year-old seahorse will be something.
Right? Oh my gosh, that'd be Guinness World Book of Records. But anyways, what Holly, you're back. What other questions did you have?
I was kind of missing just the tail end of that because my sound was glitching really bad, and I started getting a message that the streaming wasn't working. So I don't know what I missed.
I don't think we said anything else important. Just I was talking about how Ray always says to put the seahorse in a hospital tank the second you know something's wrong, and then we went off track like we always do. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think
Yeah, I noticed, Kelly, now you got my ad there.
I got your what?
You got my
Yeah,
ad.
Switch
seahorses.
Oh, yep. Oh, wrong way. Anyways, but no, Holly, I think what they're saying is correct. I think since it's your baby and you love him, I think too, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying Diamox again. I just,
Yeah.
that way you know for sure you've done everything you can.
And he's with 2 other seahorses. So is it fine to have them all getting the Diamox, even though they don't need it? It's just him that needs it.
Cheryl, is it bad for renal? Is it bad for their something or other?
Diamox basically is a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, which seahorses normally produce, and their body takes care of it. My concern would be treating 2 seahorses that don't have any evidence of hyperinflation of the torso or pouch. What is it going to do to them metabolically? In other words, you could create a problem for your other 2 seahorses.
Gotcha.
So maybe treat him after you put the other 2 back.
After.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, from the looks of him, I don't give him much of a chance based on what I saw today.
Yeah.
And it's sad, I'm sorry to say that, but I don't want you to lose.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. No, I pretty much am thinking that myself. So
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. It sucks.
Well,
I'd still try another pouch evac. And plus, the biggest problem I had years ago when I used to go around to help people out, go to their homes and that, I'd watch them do the pouch evacuation, and then it would still have problems a few days afterwards. It would get it back again. So this time I'd go over and watch them do the pouch evac, and then I would do it myself afterwards and show them they didn't really get it all.
They didn't get the air out.
Now, wait. I've got a question about that because, and now before I post this video showing pouch evacuations, I'm going to send it to you, Ray, because if I haven't done it properly, but how do you not get it out?
Another thing that I found too, like people tend to, if it's difficult, they either don't do it or they'll use the clove oil to sedate it somewhat. But I found many years ago that if you probe at the pouch in an upward and inward direction rather than down and in, you're likely to open it up much easier. Just because of the way that the pouch opening is, and when it tightens up there, if you go upwards and in and then go down, it's much easier to get it in. So once I found that out, I never had to use clove oil again.
Yeah.
I don't have to see how I do it.
Right. But
go ahead, Cheryl.
One of the things I do, I haven't done a pouch evac in several years. But in the past, when I had one male that basically had a long family history of pouch emphysema, I started putting liquid in the syringe and literally injecting a small amount of fresh salt mix or salt mix with antibiotics into the pouch. And I never met a male that could not help having contractions. And so they would literally blow out all the air themselves. They'd shoot me in the face if I wasn't paying attention with the water. That pressure on the pouch would stimulate them to open the pouch and express the gas.
Well, and in the video that I did showing doing this pouch evacuation, first I did using a catheter, just letting the bubbles out, and I couldn't believe. I mean, it was like a stream of bubbles. And then because of Ray's great advice, I then did a flush. But Ray, is there some measure to know if you've, like you said, I realized when I would help people, they weren't getting it all out. How do you know if you've gotten it all out? I mean, if they swim away.
To be honest with you, the only way I knew was after I had enough experience to realize that, and when I was doing it before that point where I finally realized, I just got to a point where I realized I wasn't getting it all out, and I knew enough then to do more, put more effort into it, and especially if it got the gas back again in a few days, for
Right.
sure it didn't get all out, and I didn't flush it enough, or it wouldn't have come back.
So is
So
there a
then I
certain
found that if I did the initial flush, and if I'm not 100% sure, I do another evac and another flush again. Just,
Yep.
I mean,
So-
the Seahorse is already stressed, and I don't think the extra little bit to do it again at the same time is going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Sure. My question is though, for you guys, wait, Cheryl, for both of you, is there a certain amount of milliliters that you use of fresh salt water or antibiotic salt water or whatever that you use for the flush? How much do you use?
It depends
I'm
on the
syringing.
size of the Seahorse.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would do.
Most of the
I
dose
did-
I'm using,
Yeah, I
I'm
do a
using at
maximum.
least 5 mils.
You said what, Ray?
Most of the adults, I'm using at least 5 mils.
Yeah, that's what I used. Okay. Well, Cheryl, you agree?
Yep. With little bitty guys that are much smaller, I'd go with no more than 3. But with a regular adult, yeah, they can easily handle 5 mils.
Now, see, that's interesting to me. You're telling me that little guys can get it too? Because I've had problems with pouch
Okay.
emphysema, but never in youngins.
I bought a Seahorse years ago, a male, from a reputable breeder, and come to find out that the male, his father, had recurring pouch emphysema. The breeder ultimately contacted me and said I had to put down several of the males that he produced because of this. Well, of course, by this point, I was running into PE problems with the male I got from her. And it was basically, it was appeared, I don't know if it was physiological, I don't know, but it appeared based on what she was telling me, there seemed to be a heritable deficiency in their ability not to get pouch emphysema.
That's really interesting because I've always wondered if it's a kind of runs in the family kind of thing. I've really wondered that. But anyways,
I've asked Dan, and he doesn't think it runs in a family. But this is the only time I have seen that happen
yeah.
with a Seahorse.
I think it's more into the coincident category.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I'm very reluctant to say that it's a heritable characteristic. It may have been something that occurred during the incubation of and development of the fry.
Right.
Right.
Well, and really cool that and we won't mention names here, but really cool that breeder did reach out to you and let you know.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, and second of all, most breeders, if they have, like Holly is a breeder, but she's not going to go in. If Thing 2 got all better, she wouldn't go sell his fry, because, if there was a problem or whatever.
The closest I could come to saying that it could be passed on like that is if the brood stock wasn't capable of producing high quality seahorses with a decent immunity, then the offspring having the weaker immunity may be more susceptible to getting the
Very
gas
possible.
bubble disease. That's the closest I can come to believing that it's passed on.
Yeah. Well, this was a wild caught pair that had been treated for parasitics and all of that. However, the individual ultimately gave the females who weren't exhibiting the problem to a aquarium for their exhibit, and she refused to pass them any males because she was seeing continuous problems.
Well, hey, way to be respectable. You know what I'm saying? Way to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If you're worried about it, but that sucks.
Well,
Anyways, Holly, I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
She was a well-known breeder, and she was doing her best to try to keep everybody informed on what was going on.
And then we go right back to Ray's original. The second you see a problem, isolate the problem. Hospital tank. But Holly, I didn't mean to get so distracted. Did that help you with your question? And did you have more questions?
No. I was just wondering, about mostly about the Diamox, because I had heard if it doesn't work the first, really, it's not going to in that case. And then I had, on some of my posts, some other friends were saying, oh, maybe you should try it again. And so
Where'd you hear that or read that?
Yeah, I never heard
curious.
that.
on my
either.
Facebook, some comments on the post I made about it.
No, I mean, where did you read or see or hear about it not working a second time?
In my directions for using the Diamox from the person I got it from.
Oh. And Cheryl,
There
you're
was
nodding because I had
directions
never
on
heard
how
that.
to use it for the Seahorses, and they said to use it, for 3 to 5 days. But if it hasn't worked by the 5th day, it's not likely going to in
That's
that
true.
case.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
have-
true. But it did work, didn't it?
You had improvement there.
That's not the same as saying you can't do it again.
Yeah, but the symptoms came back. See what I'm
That
saying?
doesn't mean it's not going to work again.
So I could use it again and again and again, but
And he would it's just treating the symptoms,
like
not the root cause.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But maybe if he feels better, maybe it's worth doing. But it's a hard decision to make on that. If I'm going to lose him anyway, do
Right.
I want to waste that Diamox, which is hard to get,
Yes.
on trying to treat someone who's not going to recover?
And Holly, I faced the same thing. I've told this story a million times, but with my Erectus reedi hybrid, that just kept having problems over and over and over. And I finally was to the point like, okay, I'm not wasting more Diamox. I can't do it. I'm not wasting more antibiotics. He's just never going to be better. And I put him in fresh salt water, and he had this miraculous, crazy ass recovery. So who knows, but I get your feeling and your point. I totally understand. And I'm so sorry.
It's one of those things where if it keeps coming back, and in his case, where his torso is so swollen, it's a lot more than just his pouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, in the meantime, like half his pouch was swollen. Yeah. So I was thinking that's not air in his pouch. That is his actual body is swollen. Yeah. Is what I'm thinking.
You can get it depending on if they're just starting out with pouch emphysema. I've seen them where they have a little bulge on one side of the pouch.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the very, very early stages. It's not where you're seeing the whole pouch swelling or anything like that. But normally what that is them swimming and shifting over and moving. When they're swimming and jostling around, the air moves. It tends to want to rise to the top, and then when they shift around, they'll push it over to one side. Mm-hmm. I've seen that happen. But they're not floating or anything like that at that point.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to say really quickly for anybody who's tuning in for the first time or maybe on Instagram, we are diving into deep Seahorse topics right now because Holly's having an issue, and we're here to help always. But this stuff is not typical. Always join us for Wine Wednesday. We can talk about how to set up a tank, the basics of Seahorse species, tank mates. We do that all the time. Just wanted to make sure anybody new isn't scared off by this because 90% of the time you're not going to have any of these problems. But when and if you do, we're here to help. So I just wanted to kind of say that.
If these problems were frequent, we probably would have figured out the solution by now.
Right, exactly. And that's the other thing I was going to say is now that we've kind of analyzed and realized that, Holly, your Seahorse, it's probably not just pouch emphysema, it's probably internal GBD. And internal GBD, we don't know what the heck or how the heck or what the heck. I don't know anybody. Has anybody ever cured a Seahorse with internal GBD? I'm sure they have.
For about a decade, but I have. But it was reedi.
Yeah.
How'd you do it, Ray? I'm curious.
with the Diamox.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
with me, well, I didn't have the Diamox ran. I just went to my drugstore that I go to and told the pharmacist what I needed. And what is it, a set of Zolamide or something, I think the proper
Yeah,
name.
Result, yeah.
And she sold me a bottle.
Yeah.
You know, it's a prescription thing, but it's
You were friends.
people buy it or get it for when they're traveling too. And I can't
Yeah.
remember the circumstances, but
Yep.
it's
Airflow.
fairly
Right?
common. So
Yeah.
it's not like it was a serious thing. They're not giving away some blood pressure medication or something like that.
Exactly.
Still, now you can't get it here. You got
Yeah.
you cannot get it here. And what was I going to ask? Oh gosh. Oh darn it. Never mind. I forgot my question. Go ahead
Well,
if you're still talking.
My Diamox expired over 10 years.
That's what I was going to ask. Thank you, Cheryl. I was going to say,
And
does
mine
it
is
expire?
expiring soon. So I'm thinking, I have a couple rows of it that I think are expiring like right now. So I'm like, I might as well use those.
Yeah.
And then
Ignore the
I have
expiry date,
another.
Ignore
That's
the expiry
20.
date.
Wait, Ray saying ignore it? Why?
Yeah. If you go on the NIH site and
Mm-hmm.
do a search, the NIH and coupled with somebody else did a study for the armed forces in the States. Because they have such a high medical bill, they were wondering how far they could push it past these expiry dates, because it meant billions of dollars to them with the amount that they used. And with the studies done, and I don't remember the exact figures now, but I believe it was about 80% of them were still effective 10 years down the road after
Yes.
the expiry date.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Cool.
in some types of medications, especially if it's not a solid form, if it's a liquid form, no, it doesn't go on well. But the solid ones, most of them are like that. And I'm trying to think what else. Geez, I wish I didn't have this memory problem, because it's only about 2 weeks ago that I was looking at that.
But we can look it up.
But basically,
I know for a fact that I've talked with people that were working or actually climbing part of Everest. And the only Diamox they could get had already expired several years earlier. It did not appear to be as effective as some of the folks that had brand new prescriptions, but it still got the job done. It still worked.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But anyways, Holly,
at one time, the pet industry used to take expired human medicines, like the antibacterials, and then they would put it out for use as water, like for fish, treating water and fish. And I'm not sure about other animals, but it's possible that it got used for that too. But I know in the aquatic industry, that was common back 30 years ago.
Interesting.
And it's probably one of the few ways people could get some of these meds too, would be to pick up expired meds and use them.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, I think
I don't throw mine out.
Yep, and I think, Holly, as far as the amount you have left, it's got to be your call, and I definitely will try. I definitely want updates to know. Poor thing too. I'm sorry. Sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. But you know what? On the other hand, I have 10 healthy seahorses.
Yep, and you should document your. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I said the others are doing great.
Yep, and I hope you document the female that's not sick but just weird.
No, it's just trying to figure that out. And yeah, Dandy is almost 3 years old, and he hasn't had any problems at all, other than he's handicapped.
Right.
and he's been for a long time, and he just gets around and deals with it. I don't think he's sick. I don't know what it is, but it might be like some of our like genetic human diseases that, I don't know. I really don't. Can't explain that one.
Okay, before we move on to another topic, Seahorse Corner asks, is the pouch emphysema more common in adult males because they're flushing and cording? Could that be why juveniles don't usually get it? Because they don't open up their pouch?
Yeah, they don't have access to getting it until they start inflating their pouch. That's not going to be true of internal emphysema.
Right, internal, right.
But just for pure pouch emphysema. Although I have seen, years ago, I saw a young male. He just developed a pouch, just started inflating his pouch, and the next thing I knew, he was floating.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's why I still question: is there something on the genome that makes them more susceptible at
No, I think
times?
it's just because they are opening it more. Like you can sit and watch them sitting there pumping water in and out without even doing, any mating procedures at all. So I think it's a case of the water getting in there and the bacteria, and it's in a confined space, and there's probably some nutrients sitting in there trapped in the water, and it just feeds the bacteria, and bingo.
Yeah.
Or you've got little bugs in it, like my damn tank, and I talked last week about the little
Yeah, but every tank has that.
Huh?
You can set up a tank completely sterile, and eventually you're going to have stuff growing in it.
Yeah,
There's airborne spores in that, and it doesn't matter whether you got just plain water or whether you got salt water. Something is going to grow in it, and it's going to be coming from airborne spores.
But again, anybody new, you can still keep a seahorse tank very easily. We're talking about the worst case scenarios here. And yes, Ray's right. There are always going to be strains of Vibrio and bacteria and et cetera in the tank. But as long as you do your water changes properly, you won't typically run into these problems. I just wanted to keep saying that. We all have, because the two folks on top have been keeping seahorses for, we won't tell how long because they're only 21 still. And then me and Holly have been doing it for quite a few years.
You mean
but I'm
21
just saying it's years. Decades.
Years. Yeah, it's years.
Just saying, Seahorse Corner is a great example. Like have you run into pouch emphysema? I'm curious because many people never see these kinds of problems. And the key is buy captive bred, buy from a reputable breeder, and make sure that you set up your tank properly. We've linked documents before, and I'm still working on the darn website, but Seahorse Sources group on Facebook is a great resource in the file section. Tells you how to set up for seahorses and how to keep up the care. Ray's great about talking about feeding seahorses. So, join us in that group on Facebook, or, just join us here because we're happy to answer even the most basic questions about setup. And, you'll never likely see these problems, but
Well,
I was
Holly's
saying
a breeder. Holly's a
problems with
breeder,
the
and again,
fresh water than the seahorses right now.
we can talk.
They're
We can talk.
harder than the seahorses.
We can talk freshwater in a second too, but again, just to reiterate, Holly actually took this seahorse back from someone that had bought it and wasn't set up properly, and had problems. We won't go into detail, but she took the seahorse back, and he already had problems. So
yeah.
just
Well,
wanted
it's
to.
one of those
Trying
things.
to give them a chance.
We've made so many advances in terms of keeping seahorses over the years. I like 10 years ago, I posted, I don't do anything the same way I did when I first started. And even now, I don't do anything the same way I did 5 years ago, because there's so many other things that we have learned about them. Who knew that they didn't have associated lymphatic tissue 15 plus years ago? Now we know it. We know how to improve that. But it's been, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of trial and error. And your copepods crawl on seahorses.
Yeah, That's me.
I
Sorry.
think they would.
Bigger
It
pods.
depends
I
on the
think they
species.
throw on every.
Okay, so that's actually my question. I'm gonna cheat and lie. Not lie, but cheat. Anyways, that's my question because I'm still trying to deal with again, if you weren't here last week, basically I have a bare bottom tank. I have 3 seahorses. It has rock. It's an all-in-one. It's my experiment to try to figure out how to keep a smaller tank for folks who want to keep smaller tanks. After coming to one Wednesday and talking with you guys, I've gotten it set up to where it runs pretty efficiently now. But these flipping copepods that came, I had to have come in when I added Artemia from a store. They're driving me crazy. Like my seahorses are scraping, and usually when you see a seahorse like scraping their gill, like their gill
Yeah.
area, their head, then you think that it's what, Cheryl? Ciliates?
You're thinking it's ciliates, they've got some kind of a parasitic infection going on.
Right. So my
Copepods are
seahorses are
seasonal.
not, but my seahorses are not doing that. My seahorses are acting insane and literally
body.
scraping their sides and stuff. And I can look at my pregnant male seahorse, and I talked to you guys before he got pregnant, and he was doing all this extra flushing and like jerking. And Chris Carey talks to me on Messenger a lot, and he told me, no, that you're freaking out over nothing. It's normal. But I had never, my males in the past had never done that. He looked
Take a
like he was in
sample
like,
to somebody that has a microscope and
I know you told me that last time, but
That's
I just,
exactly what you
I
need.
saw
you
them
haven't done
crawling
anything
on his
about it. You
pouch.
might be worried over nothing just
I
because you
know.
haven't bothered to go do that yet.
I'll give you about
know.
99.99% odds you've got tiger pods in there.
Yeah.
Aren't
Yeah.
they orange?
They're the
No,
only ones that I know of that jump up on seahorses.
mine are white, and that's what Mandy eats. My Mandarin Goby eats those. So I replenish them now and again, maybe once or twice a year, and they will crawl around on the front of the glass and rocks and everything. She hunts them, but I don't see any reason why they would not get on a seahorse.
They will.
Now the thing is, I have something that eats them though, so they're being controlled. So
Well, I know I sound crazy, you guys, but I'm just wondering if anybody who's watching this or watches this later, have you ever looked at your seahorse and seen something crawling on it and been like, okay, that's just a copepod, but it's right near the pouch. Don't mess with my babies. And Amanda Shore said, are they isopods? So I'm going to show my stupidness. What's the difference?
Google it and you'll see what they look like.
Yeah.
There's
You
different
need
isopods
to get a
too,
picture.
though. There isn't just one shape.
I know, but
There's copepods, there's isopods, and there's amphipods.
Yeah.
And they're all a little different. They could be isopods, but without getting them either with a really good macro lens or under a microscope, they're going to be too small to visualize.
well, I've showed you guys in the Wine Wednesday chat. These guys are really small. Like I can't use my iPhone to get a picture.
Yeah.
But I will, Ray, try to get the microscope deal. And I mean, I will. I'm sorry, you guys. I got twin 14-year-olds. My life's hectic and I haven't felt good this week. But the seahorses are important. I will find out so that I can let you guys know in case you ever run into this. I'm one of those people that I overreact to everything, right? When I go to most people go to their tank and they're like, it's beautiful. I go to my tank and I'm like, wait, why is the skimmer doing that? Wait, why is it, and I freak out. So, because I care so much. So, it's probably nothing. You're probably right.
Well,
And
one
Well,
other
if he
thing.
knows how upset you get,
yeah,
he
when they
just
do
makes sure
look
that
like copepods to me.
Yeah.
what'd you say, Ray?
Murphy's Law says that he does it just because he knows you're going to get upset. Make sure these things go wrong.
They act goofy, we'll give them something. The
Yep.
thing is, too, you've got to remember, if they're actually copepods, there's a big difference between the tiger pods that come out of the Arctic and what are called tiger pods that come out of California, Laguna Beach, places like that. Because the ones coming out of California actually have claws, hook-like claws on them that they use to hold to the rocks when the tide's coming in to keep getting swept away. And people have actually photographed basically them tearing up seahorse fry.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I'm going back a
So,
lot of years, but
right. Sorry, I was thinking and talking at the same time. Don't do that. Oh, Kelly, just kidding.
Well, my first
But
batch of fry, though, survived on those, actually, on Tigger
Right.
where did
pods.
you get them from?
What's that?
Where'd you get the tiger pods from?
They're the same ones I feed the mandarin. They're from Reef Nutrition. They're called Tigger pods, like Tigger
Okay.
from Winnie the Pooh.
Right. Those are
Tigger.
those are the Arctic pods. That's the other name.
So they're different then.
No, the Arctic pods are different from the Tigger pods.
Yeah, the Arctic pods are different than Tigger pods, but the real tiger pods that do most of the damage are actually from areas along the California shoreline.
So Tiger
I
and
use-
Tigger are not the
I
same
used
thing.
Reef. Yeah, I used Reef's Tigger pods, and they jumped on the seahorses, so I never bothered with them again. But
right, and
I've had a lot of different copepods, but I used them mainly because I had breed-eye back then. I used them for their initial foods.
Right.
But then when I switched to Erectus, I still kept the cultures going. And even though there wasn't any need, I still had this thing feed it to them. And then
Yep.
because of my reef tanks, and I was able to harvest amphipods, so I started cultures of those, and I was using that for the adults. But that was an occasional thing because culturing amphipods is like culturing mice and shrimp. It takes a long time. You have to watch for the what's the word there when the predation on the smaller ones.
Yeah, when they
Cannibalism.
eat each other. Yeah.
And for me, the copepods, they weren't a permanent thing. I didn't have brine shrimp hatched at the time.
Right.
Yeah, I
right,
was
right.
raising the copepods because I never knew when I was going to have fry. I lost my very first batch of fry, or Sandy's first batch of fry, I should say, because it was winter and I didn't have brine shrimp ready, and it took them a few days to hatch because it was cold. And so after that, I read an article online about how to raise copepods, which is actually really easy. So I set up some buckets and had some going just so that in case I had fry, I always had something to give them until the brine shrimp hatched.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
what that was about.
And in my case, where I'm having this trouble, which I might not even be having trouble, I'm probably just overreacting. But I think it might even be a vote for, or I can't think of the right words, but it might be a vote for like a tank with sand and all of that stuff, because I love breeding and the babies. I set this tank up very sterile. It does have rock, but it was cleaned rock, and that's literally, it's got rock, and I copied Heather's curtain chain or curtain
Shower
Yeah.
curtain. Yeah.
Shower
and that's
Ring.
all that's in the tank. I even ended up taking out the yellow fake plants because they were active. I think they were for freshwater. So I think it was
Okay.
not
I'm
meant
going
for
to give you an
saltwater.
example, though. Years ago, a friend of mine who was a breeder sent me what were supposed to be some copepods, which was great. I needed them. The only problem is when I saw one of my newborn fry with its tail against the side of the nursery
Oh,
tub
don't say that.
and wiggling back and forth and back and forth, and I used an eyedropper, sucked it up, not the seahorse, but whatever it was stuck to, put it under the microscope. It was a flatworm.
Oh, I know, Cheryl. And I know you want me to check to see if they're flatworms. Go ahead, finish your story. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that was a classical example, and because what happened is the pod population that I received was already contaminated with the flatworms.
Gotcha. And that's the crazy thing, as I was saying, is I set this tank up so sterile. And the only thing I ever did that I could possibly think, as Ray has said before, things just happen in nature when you have water sitting and spinning.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think they were added when I added Artemia firmistore. I think that was contaminated, which is, they probably are just copepods. But my final question, because I'm taking up all the time, is could it be something else? Have you guys ever experienced seahorses scratching their sides? Not their face, their sides. Is
Yeah.
that crazy?
Have to reach their tail up and try to scratch.
Nope, they're not.
Yeah.
Nope, they're not doing that.
Nope.
No, they
Well,
go and
If
they
they rub
hitch
on
to a
rock,
rock.
then you know they got an itch.
Mine
hitch
do
to a
that
rock
now and then, and
scratch.
now I'm wondering if it's because I have copepods for immunity. Although I don't have a lot, they're to the point where I can't even see them on the glass. But she's
Right. Well, see,
eating,
yeah.
so I know
might-
they ought to be still in there, but I don't think I have a lot of them.
Right. I wish I could send you mine, Holly, but yeah.
I wish
no, I
you
mean,
could too, because I'm thinking about getting some more for her to replenish the supply.
well, maybe when I do a water change. But no, I'm just
No,
saying,
Hol-
like, because I have this tank set up so basic, because I want the fry out of it, there's nowhere else for them to go. So they're all over the glass, all over the floor, all over the shower curtain rings.
All over
and,
the seahorses.
Yeah. Now, really seriously, I can say they're not all over them, but this is
Yeah,
another
but
good,
they get on them.
yes, and
right?
this is and I do see, like, if I when I'm doing a water change, I scrape the wall and suck as many up as I can, right? So I know they can be mid water, but they're obviously benthic or they want to be on surface, right? And I think this is a good case too for explaining why seahorses can't go with certain things in aquarium, like the Astrina stars, I think they're called, because the starfish won't even know better. It's not trying to hurt the seahorse, but seahorses, especially at night when they sleep, are so stationary that things will crawl up on them. So I
Yeah.
don't think these copepods are jumping up and trying to get them. I think that
No.
there's hitched on a ring and the
Opportunistic.
copepod crawls up on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Even
Yes.
my crabs do that. I mean, my seahorses will be sitting somewhere, and a crab will use them as a bridge to the next rock. and as long as it doesn't bother them, usually they just let them walk by. But if it bothers them, they give a twitch and shake it off.
funny.
Well, gonna feed the seahorses.
Happen.
Okay, Ray, go feed. Just to backtrack, Seahorse Corner, I think you're talking about pouch emphysema. You have twice. Anytime I've had a sick seahorse, I found it was either the tank was either overstocked, underfiltered, or I don't know why I'm reading this when I put it on the screen. But yeah, no, right there with you. At least we can all admit when we make mistakes and try to help anybody new not make those mistakes. So for sure.
Well, the important thing is, like, people probably think if they followed me around all day and what I go through, even before I do a water change, carefully testing all my top off water and pH, specific gravity, temperature, the whole 9 yards. And they'd probably think I've lost my mind. And then I test each tank to see where my specific gravity is, what my pH is, etc., just to play it safe. And we had one today from a friend of mine who has like a 500-gallon tank. But anyway, I'm the nut that goes in and not only tests my top off water, my salt mix, the tank itself, and I clean the bottom because I have bare bottoms. I siphon off everything in the adult tank at least once a day. Think about that.
No, and you do sound nuts, Cheryl, but we know you're not.
I do too.
Well, I was going to say, when I do my
I'm
water
OCD.
changes,
I'm OCD.
no, listen. Every time I do a water change, I use those magic erasers and scrub. I lift my rocks, even though it's scaped. I know where it's going to go back, and I scrub the bottom of the tank, the sides. That's really, really important before you do the water change or while you're doing the water change. Yeah, no, I don't go as far as you with all the testing and all that stuff, but that's because, and for anybody new watching, you don't have to go to those measures. She's a true breeder, like a commercial breeder. She's on a different level. as hobbyists, we can still do great jobs
Yeah,
without being
you don't have to go to the extremes.
OCD.
Yeah, I'm OCD. I admit it, but it's also one of those things where I'm the nut that'll sit down and stare at a tank just for the sole purpose of observing the activity level of the inhabitants in the tank. I know exactly what I want to see, and I'm always looking for bumps, lumps, anything. And
There's
it's just,
nothing wrong with that, though. I think we all do that. Look at
yeah.
our tank and watch
But
the behavior.
you're talking about the estuarine stars. A friend of mine got a male seahorse from me this few years back. Got up one morning, went and looked, and one was attached to the gill of the male. And when he went to move it off, it literally had drilled a hole through the operculum on the gill.
Oh, wait, what? Say that again?
It literally had already drilled a hole through the operculum on the gill.
What had?
Asterina star.
Asterina.
Oh,
Remember when I had the Asterina problem in the barbs?
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell us about it, Ray.
They can kill adult seahorses.
I'm looking up the magnifying glass app. But what happened with you? Tell us again, Ray.
Well, I had a few problems, but I lost one seahorse because the damage that the Asterina got before I had actually found them on them. But that took me a heck of a long time to get them out of that tank.
Oh, yeah. And they reproduce like gangbusters. They reproduce so fast.
I used the hydrochloric on them.
But yeah, and that's my biggest thing is with these damn isopods, copepods, whatever they are. The Seahorse Corner is trying to help me get an app to get you guys a better picture so you can maybe help me identify them, or I will follow Ray's instruction and finally find the dang microscope. But anyways, my point being, now I totally forgot what I was just going to say. Oh, great. What did you say, Ray? I just totally lost what I was saying. I totally lost it.
Well, the last I can remember saying was just about the barbs tank with the Asterina problem.
Exactly.
I don't
he said he
remember
had a heck
saying
of a
anything after
time
that.
getting rid of them.
Well, I don't know what I was going to say. I'm trying to find this out.
Hydrochloric acid on them.
What we need to do.
Oh, that was it. No,
is-
thank you. Wait, that was it. My biggest thing is, like when I first approached Chris Carey with this problem, and I was like, "Help! I really think they're bugging the seahorses. These pods of whatever they are."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, freshwater dip. Of course, that's the first thing that you could do if they're really being pestered, if they're itching and scratching and stuff." But then they go back in the tank and they just get covered again. How do you fix the tank? If I ever figure it out, y'all, I will share it with you.
Panic cure.
You think?
Maybe you don't even need it fixing though.
Right, I know. Right, I won't do anything until
the problem is not a problem.
Yeah, formalin.
Well, first of all, I need to post more videos and show you guys what I'm talking about. I will in Seahorse Sources group. I've been slacking on social media. Sorry. But when you guys see, you can maybe help me. And when we identify the pod or whatever it is, that will help me. And I will do that before I make any changes, Ray. You're right. Don't change something if you don't know what's going on.
I think you should just get a mandarin and put it in there.
Right,
That's what I was thinking.
But Cheryl, but you guys, again, I'm so worried about cross contamination and all that stuff. I just usually have seahorse tanks.
Them captive bred, can't you?
I know.
I believe.
I know that. I'm just an over worrier again. Nothing wrong with that, and I may end up doing that. But typically, I keep seahorse only tanks, right? Seahorses and snails, S&S. That's my thing.
You know something? Whatever you got could have come in on snails if you added snails also.
Okay, shut up, Cheryl. I'm just.
You
I'm
might
just
as
kidding.
well have the mandarin.
Right.
But what if you moved the seahorses and put the mandarin in there for a while? Temporarily to take care of the problem.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. And
I don't know.
do something like that down the line. No, you're not wrong. if you quarantine and you don't see a problem, it's just like saying, okay, I'm going to quarantine these CUDA seahorses and I'm going to quarantine these Erectus seahorses. Okay, they're all good. And then I put them in the same tank and they all die. Like, that's just my big fear. I'm just overreactive and stupid, crazy, whatever. But I don't know. I just wish, Cheryl, if it does come down to it, and I don't want to add something to eat them, and I can't get rid of them through water changes because we know that's impossible. They multiply like little freaking worse than rabbits. And guys, usually these are good. I mean, these are, my seahorses don't eat them, but I know others that do, so whatever. And if you get something that eats them, that's the answer. If you're not crazy like me. But if you're crazy like me, I actually asked Ian, would you use formalin? And I can't remember what his reasoning was, but he said no. I can't really remember why, but
he said it doesn't work on them.
Oh, no, you're right. It's silly. It's silly. It's not pods. You're right.
Yeah.
So, but Cheryl, you said that the other one would work. What is it?
Panicure. Like Panicure. Was that what you said?
The problem in any of this, if you've got a large infestation and you introduce a chemical that will effectively kill them, they can send your tank south in a heartbeat.
Right. Because they die and it's, whoa.
Exactly. And I have a dear friend ran into a somewhat similar problem to what you're describing. He treated it, and then next thing he knew, all his seahorses were either dead or dying.
Oh.
And the problem was not the treatment, it was from the contamination from, depending on how bad the infestation is. And his was really bad. It killed his seahorses.
Well, I think I said last week that I was going to post a picture and video on Seahorse Sources group and on my Facebook page. And then I went and I posted it in the Wine Wednesday chat. Sorry, guys. I will, after this episode, post a video and just show you guys. And I'll try to get a video of them on the seahorses. And maybe you guys can help me.
How big are they?
I showed you last. I'll show you again when we're done. But they're
tiny. You shared in the
seahorses could not eat them.
With the seahorses, like this one. Let's see if I can see this video you shared. And just looking at that.
Compared to the seahorse?
Compared to what I have in my tank, the copepods, it looks like them to me.
Okay.
Not being an expert, but I do have copepods. So, and I don't see all that great. So there's a disclaimer there. But it looks to me like that's what it is.
I think you're right. I think you're right too, because Cheryl mentioned something a few weeks ago about tails. And you can, while all of these things all over my tank are tiny, 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 all of them, there are really tiny, and then there are obviously adult tinies. And on the adult tinies, you can see a tail. So, but none of them get big enough to look like the copepods I'm used to. So that's where the confusion is. Amanda Short also went along with what Cheryl was saying and said, flatworms, here I can put it up, flatworms will release a toxin when they die also. So be very aware of using it. We're not suggesting to anyone out there to use chemicals to treat a problem until you really know what's up.
Yeah, what we need to find out is what kind of pods you've got in there. It's like, for me, I raised the Aplocyclops pentamensis for combs and basically tiny pelagic fry. They're very highly nutritious. They don't bother the seahorses. The seahorses and fry will snick them and go crazy over them. And even the full-grown adults don't cause any problems with newborn pelagic seahorse species. But
so they don't crawl on them. They
get eaten by them.
Right. I was just thinking when you said that, I'm like, man, maybe when the male has the fry, it'll be a feeding frenzy.
It'll be feast. The
babies, the frylettes will eat them.
Now, the thing is, the kind of pods that I'm working with, the newborns look like a speck of dust. If that big. Yes,
that's what these look like. They could be Aplocyclops panamensis because I just don't know. I need to do what Ray suggested.
the Apanamensis pods, I've worked with them since, I don't know, 2009, 2010. I've never had a problem even with them getting onto fry.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
I know
either way, I just need to do the right thing and get some good pictures and videos for you guys and use the dang microscope. I have one. I know I do. I bought one back when I started breeding, and I just can't find it. So, if you're near me, I prefer not to have to buy another one, but I will if I have to. And we can get this ID'd. I will post when we're done the best that I can via iPhone with the Seahorse Corner suggestion to get the magnifying app on the iPhone, and we'll see if we can figure it out.
Exactly. That'll work.
Because it is, and that's the real question for me is, I'm sure you guys are right. I'm overreacting. It's probably just pods and they don't matter. But if that's the case, why are the seahorses scratching their sides?
Well, if they're irritated all the time.
Wait. I couldn't hear you guys both talked. Holly first.
I said, if they're being irritated all the time, like if there's a lot of pods bothering them, then that could be why because they've always got them on them. I mean, like I'll see my seahorses do that once in a great while. They'll rub on something or go to shake something off, but it's not all the time. It's once in a great while. So I think little stuff gets on them or bugs them, but if it's happening all the time, then it's probably like fleas on a dog. They're
right. That's right. And just to clarify, it's not all the time. Like when they come out to eat, they eat. Mm-hmm. When they're sleeping, they sleep. I just happen to notice it, and it's too often to ignore it. Cheryl, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, remember too, not all copepods play nicely.
Right. That's what Chris Carey said. Right.
Yeah. It's like my Apanamensis pods, I can throw full-grown adults in with newborn pelagic fry, and the adults won't hassle them or do anything with it. And they'll eat the newborn nipli. But I can guarantee you there's pods that I could put in there that would dry. Well, I'd lose all my fry. And that's
okay.
What you've got something in there that's maybe parasitic.
Don't say that.
Well,
don't say that.
But they're obviously what you're describing. The seahorses they're making the seahorses very uncomfortable.
Okay, so final question, and this is hopefully if you're new, you'll appreciate the question, and if you're a veteran, yes, it's a dumb question. Whatever. So I never.
The dumb question is one that you don't ask.
Yeah, I was not good,
dumb, but we give some dumb answers sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. All right then.
I can do that.
I have never been good with the microscope. Okay, so what do I need to concentrate? Like this, I feel dumb. I haven't used it in such a long time that I'm like, okay, so these things are so small. I understand. I need to suck one up and put it on the slide and put it under. What? Tell me what to do, Cheryl, please.
You can buy slides that actually are concave, have it. So you can literally suck up water with an eyedropper or a pipette, put it in on this slide, and you just have to be careful that you don't go down too far and get the end of the microscope in the water. And you can actually get some really good pictures that way. But you just have
to want the water too deep, though.
Huh?
You have a hell of a time trying to focus because I don't use the dish one. I use just a flat slide, and I put some on, but I try to minimize the amount of water on there because when I'm trying to focus it, I can focus the top of the water, I can focus in the middle, and I can focus at the bottom, and so I might be missing what's sitting there moving around in the middle when I'm focused on the bottom or on the top.
Right.
So the thinner the layer that you can have there, the easier it is to be able to identify.
You can, but I can't kill them and smush them and then look at them. I gotta have them alive, right?
If you put water on it, Kelly, you can put a cover slip on it that won't squish them, but it will slow them down because they're gonna have trouble moving through the water.
Oh, I want to be so clear. I want to smush them. But
now we want a microscope. I haven't had one.
We want to ID them.
Wait a minute, everybody's talking.
If you can't ID them when they're live, then you put a little bit of formalin on the drop.
Yep, that'll work.
Oh, okay. Like that. I can make no, I won't. I won't talk about making something suffer. That'd be terrible. Anyways, Holly's like, oh my God, I didn't come to this appointment. Say I'm not here. Sorry.
Call them seahorse bugs.
They're squishing this.
Well,
You won't be able to tell what they are.
guys, if you have any questions about seahorses, whether they're obviously you can ask dumb questions and no questions dumb. I just meant you can ask whatever you want here. Tell us about your seahorses. We're here for you. But back to me. So final question on that. Is there anything else you guys have ever seen or heard of that, as Holly said, seahorses scratch once in a while, but that like ciliates ciliates are in the gills, so it wouldn't cause them to scratch their sides. This is the only likely answer, right? That something's crawling on them.
The thing is, ciliates are not going to. You're not going to be able to see ciliates under a microscope.
Right. No, I just meant like, is there anything else that would make seahorses scratch their sides?
Probably.
Well,
But you don't
okay.
necessarily know what though. I have
Thanks,
an
Ray.
11-year-old dog that has been scratching himself silly for 11 years, and the vets can't find a thing. We sent him to Guelph University, which has a specialty department just for animals, and he was there for a week. They never figured out what it was. They finally decided it was probably something, an allergy or something like that, and it's just not showing on his skin. So we put him on allergy pills for a couple of years. Never made a difference. But he still scratches to this day, chews hair out. Well, actually, he's not chewing the hair out anymore because he lost most of his teeth. But he still chews that out, even though he can't chew the hair out anymore. But 11 years been going through this. Nobody's got an answer for it. So I'm just saying that there may be no answer for this itching problem, the scratching problem that you're talking about on the seahorses.
Truth. And I'm actually an itchy, scratchy person too. I'm all about the lotion, y'all. So maybe for the doggy, because now I feel sorry for him, find some sort of oil for the hair coat. But anyways, Amanda Shore said, we have seen pod explosions in newly cycled systems. They usually subside. I was writing an answer, but I wanted to listen instead of write. So Amanda, what do you consider a newly cycled system? Because usually in the reefing and in seahorse world, we talk about newly cycled systems until they're about a year old. You're getting established. You're to the point where you got it figured out. One week? No. For when it's actually established, not working and running, but established.
You're not talking about just cycled.
Right.
I'm talking about cycle. Yeah.
Right. So in an established tank, though, she's saying that they will subside, and I bet you're right. But how in the heck? Why, and how does that happen? I need to bring a scientist in, I think. But yeah, it's like 5-ish months old. Is that right, you guys? I was trying to think when I said.
I think it's about 6 months old now, if I recall
6 months
correctly.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the seahorses are huge now, all three of them, and breeding. And this happened about a month after I added Artemia. And I am careful with Artemia. I listened to Cheryl and Dan and Ray, and I use peroxide, and I can't believe it would come in on that. But that's the only thing I can think of. There's no other way unless they poof magic.
If you added macro,
I didn't.
No macro. How about?
Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I did. I forgot. Yes, I did. Okay, maybe that.
Oh, maybe
Never
That's
that.
how I ended up with the aspirinas.
And I added snails.
And
I
snails.
rinsed the snails, but
They're more likely a source of
Those.
the brine shrimp.
Because I remember
used
saying
cleanup
if you
Okay, Holly first.
peroxide pods, they won't survive. Because I asked him about that.
Say what?
When I had the pods, when I was feeding the babies the pods, because I didn't have brine shrimp yet, I asked if I should run them through the peroxide, and he said no, it'll kill them.
Yeah, pods.
So maybe I could
there's a
use
big difference
peroxide
between
on
the
brine
tank.
shrimp.
No sharp peroxide dosing.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between brine shrimp, baby brine shrimp, and aquaculture copepods.
You know what I just thought of too? I'm really bad at the little itty bitty creatures. I hate bugs. I hate bugs in my house. I hate bugs in my tank. So
You got bugs in your
ha-
tank.
it,
You got bugs in your
it
tank.
might be, and I know most bugs are good in the tank, for the record. Love reef nutrition. Love reef nutrition. Love their bugs. I just don't want them anywhere near me. Anyways, what it? I don't even know what a rotifer looks like. It might be rotifers.
No,
No.
rotifers aren't going to live like that. Same as if you put
Okay.
brine shrimp in the tank, they're not going to live.
Yeah.
And
Not
same
only
with
that,
rotifers.
unless you've got very good eyesight, your probability of seeing them,
Yeah,
Is-
you're right. They're tiny.
because they're basically not only tiny. One of the things that we learned a long time ago with seahorses is they don't have a visual search image for rotifers because they're basically clear in color and they go in the circular motion, which doesn't elicit a prey response. Because they have very
Gotcha.
different.
Them and everybody doesn't believe me.
I told you guys, Cheryl's the brainy scientist, and Ray's the I know my shit, don't mess with me, dude.
I know
Okay?
that's why we get along.
Anyways, no, you're right. Sometimes I ask silly questions.
Between
But
rotifers and copepods,
Some pictures
that's
of
how I
rotifers.
get all my reed-eye.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got some
And
pictures of
yeah,
rotifers.
and I want to make that really, really, really clear again, because I've already said it, but I overreact. There's probably, as Ray said, nothing wrong with my seahorses. They scratch once and I freak out. So it's probably fine. Rotifers, copepods, amphipods, 99.99999% of the time, they're a good thing, for your tank. Biodiversity, all that good stuff. I just want to make sure that's what it is because I'm an overreactor. And Amanda Shore also said 2 years is mature, 1 year is established. Love that terminology. Love that. Hey, Chimp, we're just talking crazy. Kelly's asking silly questions, but glad to see you here. I was gonna say something else. I keep forgetting what I'm saying tonight. Dang it.
You're getting
Anyways,
old.
I know. Cheryl, you're not supposed to say that to me. Jeez.
You want
Watch
to
out,
join my
I'm
memory
older than
program?
Kelly.
No, but
I think your seahorses are just annoyed.
yeah, maybe.
I don't
you're
think
probably
they're
right.
hurting them. I think they're just bothering them because they're walking on them.
Wait, hey, what? Okay, two final questions for you guys on my end. One, when your seahorses do get annoyed, have you ever noticed? Because, okay, let me back up a bit. When I've had problems in the past, when I first started, when I didn't know what I was doing, and I never actually had seahorses literally get weak, Snick, but it always scares the shit out of me when their snout turns dark. Is that normal?
Snow turns dark.
Dark?
Yes.
I don't think
I-
I've ever noticed that, honestly.
Yeah,
I'll have
I've
to
never
watch.
noticed.
Okay, I'll have to post another
Only time I
video.
ever see that is like when they're courting and the males will like flush and change their colors and get like they get like the dark outlines around their eyes and their snout and they look really
Yeah.
handsome. That's the
Are
only
they-
time
are
I
they
see the
feeding?
snout turn dark that I've noticed. But I haven't paid attention, so maybe
When-
I'll start watching and
Yeah.
see.
When you
Well,
say
no, look.
Whoa.
This is
Whoa.
Wine Wednesday is not for people to start watching and acting crazy like me. Let me just be clear, okay?
No, but I
I
do
just-
just stuff
what
like
are they
that.
doing when their snouts are turning dark? Is this only the snout that's turning dark, or is
No.
it portion of
Everything.
their head? Oh, their whole bodies?
Yes.
Oh, that's normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
When their snout
Make it
turns
dark.
dark, it scares me. Okay.
I just
Anyways.
turned up.
Hey, I got one for you. Years ago, I bought a beautiful pewter silver large male from Draco Marine, and he paired up with a dark brown Northern Erectus that I raised. And every morning when he was pregnant, she would search the rock. She could watch her until she found him. And then she would turn her whole head and part of her neck and snout the same pewter silver color that he was every morning.
Yep.
And it was just so cool to watch.
Well, I think and that is cool. That's awesome. I think my big fear, or whatever you want to call it, is just because when I had reed-eye and when their snouts turned dark, they started not eating as well. And that's a whole different story. But I think it was probably ciliates. I just wondered if it was attached, but you say it's not.
I've treated for ciliates. I've seen seahorses that I know had ciliates. I do not recall their snouts turning dark.
Okay, I'm gonna have to post some videos. You guys
I'm
keep
not
on
doubting
me.
it.
If I don't get these videos, no. So you guys can see and help me and tell me. But I'm saying if I don't post the videos, you guys need to be like, Kelly, where's those videos? You promised. Because I'm really bad about forgetting.
You've heard the expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words?
Yes.
All we
Absolutely.
need to do is get the government to make sure that they change the laws and make 48 hours in the day instead of 24, so she can do something now and then.
Ray, you're so mean. Oh. Anyways,
Need longer days.
yes, but really quick, the Seahorse Corner said, add snails, Kelly. I had parasites coming on snails. Lost 2 seahorses, infected them all. Saved the rest with formalin.
Oh.
Some type of trophont flukes. You know what? Seahorse Corner, I'm going to, when I am able to microscope and look at this further, I will definitely include you and tag you on the post or message you on the side. But the reason, like at first I was like, oh my God, there's some parasite or something, right? But this has been about a month now where they're just the pod explosion and then they're itching their sides, but they literally did an egg exchange and the male got pregnant. So I'm thinking, would they do that if they had parasites? Maybe they would. And here's my final question, Cheryl, you can answer it with this. Because one other thing, because I'm crazy and I notice everything, is that the absolute tip, and I will post a picture when we're done, but the absolute tip of my male's tail. Let me back up. Cheryl, most of you probably know the female that I got has a ball on the end of her tail. I can post a picture when we're done, but it's literally just a ball. It's never changed. It's not gotten bigger, smaller. Cheryl thought it was from stress, but I think she just had a deformity, which is fine. She's beautiful. I don't care. Anyways, the male at the very tip of his tail, now that he has become pregnant, is white. How do you know the onset of what's it even called?
Tail rot.
Tail rot. How do you know the onset of that?
Normally, tail rot is not necessarily going to be a color change. Your first indication is some edema, some swelling in the tail, and then and it can happen very quickly. All of a sudden, you see a small amount of bone in the tail exposed. The thing with tail rot is it's normally caused by stress and poor water quality.
And
okay,
you
so
see a difference within a couple of days. You'll see it expand.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So over
within
this
3
past
days, within 3 days, they can have a quarter or inch or more of the bone of the tail exposed. Because when they start going downhill, it happens fast.
So in other words, if for a week I have noticed, because I'm crazy and I pay so close attention to my seahorses that I'm like, that's different. If the tippity top of his tail is like a clearer color, but he did change colors when they started mating. Of course, we all know that, but it stayed a clear whitish, but nothing is eroding or nothing is happening, and it's been over a week. I'm good.
If in doubt, treat it. Put some gel on it.
Yeah. You can put
But
some
it's been
Almax.
over a week and nothing has
If there's
progressed.
nothing wrong with it, putting something on isn't going to bother it. If there is something wrong, you're ahead of the game.
That's the truth. Okay, I like that answer.
You
I
can
also
put
hope that the
Almax.
rest of you, out there don't act like me because I'm crazy. I just over worry about everything, and yeah, okay, I'm done.
Hey, I'm the one that the seahorse put his head through a hole in a rock. And when I realized it, I got him out, but his snout looked really swollen to me because he'd been kind of thrashing around.
Mhm.
So I treated him with Alamax, 2 treatments. Within 3 hours, his snout was back down to normal and he was eating.
Lovely. And I like that. I like homeopathic or whatever you call it in the seahorse world, like natural stuff to treat. I love that because these medications, I don't know, they get scary. But anyways, okay. Anybody got anything else? We've been going 2 hours. Well, I'm sorry we started late. It was all my fault. But anyways, anybody got
Blame
anything
Kelly
else to
for
chat about?
everything.
I didn't see any other questions, but I wanted to thank you, Chimp the Reefer, for coming. We love that you come and join us, even though you're a reefer. We love reefers. But anyways, and I did talk about salty reefs. Beautiful new fry.
Now we have a
And
monkey.
what was it?
We now have a monkey.
A monkey. What?
Chimp.
Chip
Oh.
the reef.
I'm not calling you a monkey, John. Okay. Anyways. All
Well,
right,
you
guys.
said that, Chimp.
No, Chimp's a great loyal friend that comes and joins us and supports us. Love
You
you.
ever seen their teeth?
And guys, I will Seahorse Corner make sure I will get with you on the side just to see because I want to make sure that that was my final question before we end this tonight. What do you guys do? And anybody on Instagram, I want to say, I know I keep backtracking. It's the wine. But anyways, anybody on Instagram, we can have an episode. We've had many episodes dedicated to the basics. There's no problem with that. Just because Cheryl talks all this medical crap and Ray is all like tisk tisk tisk,
I'll wear a mask.
We're here to talk seahorses, and I will always back you up. We want to answer your questions, and we want to share about seahorses. We want to see your takes. So definitely get involved, and don't be afraid just because we talk about crazy subjects like we have tonight. But my final question for you guys English.
You are
Is.
No, with her, it's R because there's always more.
Okay, but this is the last one. Last one.
How many times have you said that tonight?
I know that, Ray. You're on my list. What do you do if something goes wrong with your male seahorse who is pregnant? I know the typical answer is save the seahorse. There will be more fry.
Yep.
But if you want, you just can't treat a pregnant seahorse, correct?
You just what?
Can you treat a pregnant seahorse?
What's
I
wrong with
imagine
him?
you probably could, but
He's
is it
likely to
worth it?
lose him.
Yeah, you don't want to treat with antibiotics and have him deliver fry into a tank full of antibiotics because then you're risking getting long-term antibiotic resistance in the fry.
Ah, gotcha. Gotcha.
Does that make
Holly,
sense?
any thoughts on that? It does. It does. Any thoughts, Holly?
Well, I haven't run into that at this point, although even in his condition, thing 2 was courting the female, the disabled female, and they managed to do the mating dance despite their their problems.
Holly is
No, but I
literally.
Correct him. I'm like, I don't think he can get pregnant in the antibiotics, was my take on it. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it.
In his current condition, there's no way he could get pregnant.
Okay, well, good. So I don't have to worry about that one.
Holly is not going to have a bunch of handicapped
But at
children.
least
Right.
they were having a good time, right?
Yes, absolutely. Let them play. Come on.
Yeah. Let him have some fun.
Yeah.
Okay, and real quick, final thing. I know, Ray, I just said that. But Seahorse Corner said mine got itchy, not eating good, and breathing heavy. It was within a week of adding the snails to the tank. All 10 ponies were positive for freshwater dip reaction. Your issue is probably different. And itchy, okay, right. Yeah. And my issue is different. Literally, you guys, I'm probably just overreacting.
I have that video you shared. I have it right on my phone. If you want me to show it, maybe somebody can
Sure.
see.
Sure.
All right, let me hit the play. I'll make sure the volume's off.
Wait. You have to. Okay, let me.
I'm trying to get it positioned.
Hang on.
Well, we'll never be able to tell from looking at it like that.
Yeah.
I know,
Anyway,
and I
I
will
have to
post.
sign off anyway.
Okay, Ray, go ahead.
So,
Don't worry.
good luck.
Can you see him on the glass?
No, you can't see it. I'll post it in the group and in the comment, and I'll tag a link to the comments.
Because I could see enough in that video for me to think, oh, I got those. That's what I feed.
Those are like snail eggs.
No, they're walking.
Well, they're
with
not.
them.
No, yeah, they're not snail
walking.
eggs.
Here, let me play it again, just so.
That's my male seahorse saying, "Feed me."
Oh, I see it moving. I see him moving.
When you focus in on them more, you can see them in this video. See?
Yeah, they're tiny, but they're all over. In fact, what I'm going to try to do.
Walking.
They do walk, yes, and I'm
And
going
they
to try
look just like my copepods when they're walking on the glass.
I'm sure they are. I'm just going to use Seahorse Corner's suggestion to get the app for the magnifying glass and try to get a better video showing their details.
Do you have a macro lens? Because I've been able to get some really good pictures of copepods and some other really tiny stuff using a 105 millimeter macro. Huh?
Actually, I do. I just realized, yes, I do. Yes. I used it for coral, and I didn't think to use it for this.
It takes a little practice because they're moving, but I've gotten some really beautiful, clear pictures of copepods that are less than half that size. And I mean, you can even see the egg sacs in the females.
Mm. Wow, that's crazy. That's a really good picture. But so I will work on that. I will make sure I will post what I have when we're done, and then I will try to get better pictures, or macro pictures. And again, tonight was just open chat, but if you want a topic covered, if you're watching this on Instagram or on Facebook or on YouTube, and you're like, I really want to learn about seahorses, and these crazy people are talking about bugs all night, then all you have to do is message me or make a comment and say, hey, can you cover seahorse care? Can you cover flow in a seahorse tank? We cover it all. You can go back past through our Wine Wednesdays that we've done in the past, but we're totally willing to cover it in the future. And we just get together every Wednesday to drink wine and chat.
Okay,
Kelly
Kelly
drinks wine anyways. What, Cheryl?
One question that I've been getting a lot lately is what are the differences in what is a better enrichment? And of course, my response is it depends on what you're trying to enrich and what you're trying to accomplish. But it's one of those things that would be a very good learning tool. In fact, I had somebody said I'd send him more information this morning. I got swamped and didn't get it done, so I've got to do that to send him the information. Because some people are still using the old Celco or Super Celco. There's a lot of newer products that are much more effective, but they're used for different things and they have different efficacies. And that would be something that might be a benefit to a lot of people starting out in terms of improving their nutritional profile on their seahorses.
Well, first of all, I just saw Holly tip a beer. She's drinking with me. Yay. And, okay. Well, anyway, second of all, I totally agree, Cheryl. Great topic. And whether we do a full show on it or just start out with it next week, that will be the first thing we talk about. Don't let me forget.
Better remind me too. Either that or call Dan and make sure he shows up. He'd be the best one for it.
Right. And the other thing is that I have some actual questions about enrichment because of the enrichment that I've been recently using that stains some things. So tune in next week and we'll talk about that. Yeah. Also, I'm visiting Dan in less than a month, and I will get you guys an in-person interview with him, and he's going to discuss his hatchery and peroxide and enrichment and all that stuff. It is coming. I'm going in December to visit him, so I promise it's happening. But for tonight, we're going to go ahead and sign off. So I know I don't end these very well. I'm always like mid-sentence. Okay, we're done. Bye.
Yeah, but wait. But
Oh,
wait, there's always
one more thing. I'm terrible.
But
Ladies, say goodnight. No more waits.
I can't get in the camera.
All right. Everybody's in the
Cheers.
camera. Happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.
And